So here's the MBX Air Buffer. This is what you're going to get as a kit from MBX. You're going to get the buffer. You're going to get a buffer spring. You're going to get this buffer pad with the hole plugged off there. You're going to get an Allen tool to open or close that set screw. And you're going to get this little tool, and I'll show you this tool, what it's all about here in the video. So on your buffer tube, and I'm going to show you later on in the video how to put a little chamfer on here. And you need to take that little edge off so your seal will slide nice and easy inside the buffer tube. So this little tool here, you want to clear that detent pin. What you do is you would just press down on that detent pin with a little tool and then drive the end of it underneath that buffer tube so it catches. And then on the other end, it also catches on the hammer when it's cocked back on a hyperfire trigger. And it'll probably work on most other triggers out there, but if not, you would just simply just hold on to it right here with a hand, with your hand. Before you drop in all the buffer equipment in there, you would put a fair amount of oil around the seal and around the buffer itself and around the inside of the buffer tube itself, and then just kind of just spread that all around in there with your finger. And then you also want to put a little bit of grease around the lip there so the O-ring will slide nice and easy inside the buffer tube. So once that all worked in there, you would simply just attach the buffer pad at the end of the buffer spring there, so that way it drops in there without going all cockeyed in there. So just install it in there. Then you put your air buffer in. And now you would just simply take the little tool off once that buffer clears that detent pin. So you got to make sure that that detent is pressed down, or the O-ring will catch on that detent pin and possibly tear it up if you're trying to force it in there. And there'll be a more technical aspect of this video later on to talk about the O-ring, and we'll talk more about how to tune that buffer with your loads and to get it to feeling how you want it. But for now, you'd probably want to shoot it, 200, 300, 400 rounds, let everything all break in, get nice and settled in there. And you also, when you put this together, check the function of it, and you still want to be able to lock the gun back. So, but like I said, we'll talk more aspect about how to tune this later on in the video. Now let's talk about prepping your buffer tube so the air buffer will install and work properly. Here's a regular mil-spec carbine buffer tube. Most of them, if not all of them, have this little hole back here. And that's going to get sealed off with this buffer pad once you insert it inside the buffer tube. There's also buffer tubes that have these holes here at the bottom of these notches for the adjustable buttstock. And why they're there, I don't know. But these types of buffer tubes, they won't work with the air buffer system. So what you need to do is you need to take the edge off right here on the opening area of the lip. And you can do it too if you don't want to remove the buffer tube from the receiver, but obviously it's going to be a lot easier if you can remove that out of the receiver. So what you do is you just file around there around the buffer tube. This one's already been prepped, but yeah, you just take the edge there, put about a 30-degree chamfer all the way around, and then you clean it all out, the rough marks with some sandpaper. Just work your way around there. And you need to take enough material out of there so the buffer with the O-ring slips right on through there. And like I showed you earlier in the video, make sure you clean it all out. So any debris that may have fallen in there, I use Brake Clean. spray it in there, let it fall out, and then blast it out with some compressed air.